Zombies is way more popular than you or I probably ever thought, according to a former Zombies project leader, and at times, our little game mode has apparently had more concurrent players than even multiplayer. So Luke, what in the hell are you talking about? Zombies has always been popular, it's part of the Call of Duty franchise, and Zombies Chronicles for Black Ops 3 is the best-selling DLC in PlayStation history. And yes, all of that is true. Call of Duty Zombies is indeed really popular, and even in bad years, it has more players than most AAA games that have been out on the market for only a couple of weeks. But in the grand scheme of the Call of Duty experience, it's always seemed as if Zombies was the little brother next to Big Brother multiplayer and campaign. It's always been treated as the third most important mode in a 3-mode game, and with the onset of Warzone, it's become the fourth most important. As I mentioned though, it appears like Zombies might not be as little as we once thought. Brian Bright is a former Infinity Ward employee who was actually the project leader on Infinite Warfare Zombies. That means he was the head honcho on that mode at the time, and yesterday over on Twitter, he revealed some really interesting stuff that brings us a lot of answers, but also way more questions. This all started as a bit of a bombshell because Charlie Intel tweeted about how Modern Warfare 2 was not going to have a Zombies mode. Brian Bright then made a semi-salty reply to them by saying, and I quote, "After 7 months of Infinite Warfare being released, the split of IW Zombies to multiplayer daily players was close to 60% IW Zombies to 40% IW multiplayer. That doesn't happen in any other COD game. Treyarch pulls close to 20 to 30% of total players," end quote. Aside from this seeming like a little jab at the fact that he made a quote more popular mode than Treyarch did, but only Treyarch is allowed to make zombies nowadays, this is also just information that we've never really heard about before. Activision doesn't even show player counts on their games these days, but to hear actual data from a somewhat modern game like Infinite Warfare from the person who is the lead project person on that Infinite Warfare Zombies mode is wild. But what it also shows is the fact that Zombies, a little side mode that only began life as a Treyarch Studio passion project in 2008, has at any point in time on one of the biggest game series in the world been able to surpass the Ring Bearer multiplayer is fucking wild. And not only did Zombies just barely beat it out, but Brian in a follow-up tweet also said that once DLC 4 Beast from Beyond released with Director's Cut and the Mephistopheles boss fight, that the gap only grew in favor of Zombies. Now I know there's gonna be people saying that, look, it's Infinite Warfare and it wasn't very popular to begin with, but a bad Call of Duty game is still pulling more players than most game studios could ever even dream of. Let the Zombies community have our little 5-year-old triumph, alright, damn it, we just want to have this one thing. But another interesting point actually here is that he obviously mentioned that in most Treyarch titles, Zombies usually pulls between 20 and 30% of players concurrently. And I have no real reason to actually doubt his number on that either, considering Jason Blundell was a consultant on Infinite Warfare Zombies, so they probably shared some relevant data between them when planning things out, or just comparing how their games have done in the past. Like, although Brian Bright nowadays is kind of a union bashing weirdo over on Twitter now that he's retired, he was still a person who was fairly high up on the chain at Infinite Warfare, and I feel like he'd be a person that would actually be able to see this data on a day-to-day basis. But aside from that, this 20 to 30% figure is still much higher than I ever really thought though. As someone who obviously makes Zombies content for a job, I had my ideas and I truly thought that number was closer to 15% on the high end. But once I saw this data and the more that I thought about it, the more it actually kind of makes sense to me, to be honest. Call of Duty is one of those games that outside of this bubble that us hardcore fans find ourselves in, there exists a much larger group of people who just play Call of Duty when it releases for a few weeks and then barely touch it. They'll hop back in for a few days when new content is released for a new season, but it really isn't something that they're going to be playing every single day of their life. And after only a couple of months, that player base really starts to dip off very hard in the multiplayer space, but with Zombies it feels like it always retains better than multiplayer ever has. And look, to really show rather than tell. I've even made a little illustration to follow along with it, shows exactly what Brian Bright was talking about in Infinite Warfare, and to look even further into the future once that game's cycle is over. As you can see for Infinite Warfare's life cycle, multiplayer is far more popular than zombies, with the margin thinning when new maps for zombies releasing, but in June, the zombies player base overtook multiplayer and never really looked back. And as Brian said, this isn't typical of most Call of Duty games, but I think most people could agree that this graph would be correct on any game including zombies if the dates were further stretched out to years rather than it being months. I can say this pretty confidently because on a game like Black Ops 3, these days on Steam it peaks at around 5,000 players every day, and I can say that about 95% of those players are going there strictly for zombies. Multiplayer lobbies are inherently really hard to find because you need really 12 players in any given game mode just to get one lobby going, and then if you don't like the people that you're playing with, it's just really hard to find new matches. So people tend to stick to the newer games or just not even bother loading up the old ones if they want to play Call of Duty. But hell, even with modern games like Cold War, you can see just how popular zombies really is over time. We all know that Cold War started off insanely hot, with zombies performing so well it's not even funny. Everybody was sitting playing it, and then all of a sudden it kind of fell off really hard. Except it actually kind of didn't. When Outbreak released in the second DLC slot, according to Treyarch in an official blog post that they made, they had more players on zombies during that weekend of Outbreak's launch than at any other point in the game's life cycle, including launch day. That really goes to show you the absolute staying power that zombies has, and it really goes to show that zombies has a huge fan base, but it's not one that really ever gets talked about too much, especially in the media. So to finally get to the important section of this video, why the hell does any of this matter, Luke? What was the point of this video? Well, it matters a lot because Call of Duty makes billions of dollars per year every single year. If Zombies is pulling in that much of a percentage of players and is keeping them interested in the game longer than multiplayer or the campaign, then why the hell does Zombies have a seemingly non-existent budget and a skeleton crew to develop it? Or going even further, why is Activision not seeing the dollar signs raining from the ceiling like they usually do and letting Treyarch develop their own standalone Zombies game? So again, I'm not going to pretend like I know exactly how many people work on the Zombies development team over at Treyarch, but I can take a rough guess here. I would say that during a Treyarch main year like Cold War, they probably have 15 to 20 people working on it all the time. Could be more, could be a little bit less, because there's always people bouncing around departments, especially art people. I know that there's like very few people in certain departments that actually work on just one mode throughout the entire year. And to some people that might seem like a lot to have 20 people working on a side mode, until you realize that at Treyarch alone there are close to 500 employees full-time at that company. That's not including contract workers, temps, QA department who are technically contracted, and more that I'm probably missing out on here. So let's say 300 of them are developers, right? That means Zombies receives 5 to 7% of the workforce while bringing in / retaining 20 to 30% of players. Or to put it another way, there's one zombie developer per 1% of the total fucking player base in a main Call of Duty game. Absolutely absurd. You can even see how stretched thin they are based on the trash pile that is Vanguard Zombies and the fact that they are forced to work on literally every Call of Duty in some capacity at this point. Treyarch needs a break, developers are only human, and you can only work so many hours to get things done. Zombies is way more popular than I realized, and it just pisses me off so much. They bring in the most passionate fans who will play their games for years. Even after they stop getting updates and new content, they also bring in a big portion of players, so why the fuck does this team keep on getting shafted with low employee counts and low budgets? At this point, Activision, give Kevin Drew, Craig Houston, Mark Mastas, and the rest of the Zombies team $100 million, which is chump change to Activision, especially with them being acquired by Microsoft, and just let them make their own fucking game. They could bring over lots of the framework from the main Call of Duty games to speed things up, just remaster some maps from the ground up, make a few new ones to further the Dark Ether storyline, and let us finally have mods and custom maps on console. It's not like it's an unheard of thing. Fallout 4 has a system for console mods, and that went fairly smooth with the devs just having to review them and place them into a store area for players to download. That even covers your microtransactions to fund the game, and if Call of Duty incorporated it well, the player base would stay high for years and it would sell literally millions of copies. So with this information that Brian Bright gave us, it really intrigued me, but it also infuriated me, me, because now that we have actual data to show that Zombies does deserve more than it's getting in the last few years, what the fuck? Please do right by them, Treyarch, Activision, Microsoft, whoever needs to hear it. Honestly, just give the Zombies department what they deserve. Zombies fans by the millions will thank you for it. What the fuck's going on? I don't know anymore. All I know is that the last video is about Black Ops 2 being an absolute masterpiece. You should go watch it, like the video, sub, bye.